Alright, hello and welcome to the first video tutorial first of three, I guess, for animation topics. So in class we talked about how to take something from Maya, optimize it for video games, export it, and then apply materials in Unreal 4. We even got into a little bit about how to create materials for stuff like rocks and wood. So today we're going to do a quick tutorial on some more of those topics. So what we're looking at right here is an asset for the game I'm making. It's a 1960s jukebox, and as you can see, it's definitely not low poly. So the really nice thing about Unreal 4 right now is that it has the capability of rendering higher poly meshes. So back in the day we had to do a lot of optimization and really a lot of fooling, but nowadays we can do stuff like have really nice beveled edges and really cool details and not really worry about it affecting our performance too much. So the first thing we're going to look at is once again how to export stuff. So you can see in my object, I'll open up my outliner real quick. I have a bunch of different objects. In fact, I have quite a few different objects here. So what I want to do is make sure that all these objects have been checked to make sure that there's no wacky geometry going on. So what I'll do is I'm going to shift select everything. So I've selected all my objects, and now I want to go under mesh and then clean up. And what we're looking at here is clean up matching polygons. Yes, I'll actually have them clean up instead of select them, because I'd rather just have Maya fix it for me for now. Four-sided faces. So if we wanted to turn this on, that would actually enable triangulation. Essentially, it would cut every quad into triangles. So we don't necessarily need that right now. So I'm going to leave it off. Faces with more than four sides I want on. Concave faces, yes please. Faces with holes, also that, and non-planar faces, that's good as well. And lamina faces is something a little different. I'm actually going to turn this off. So what it would be is if you had two faces which were sharing basically vertices which occupy the same exact space. So basically vertices on top of vertices. If you use this feature, it would weld those together and kind of delete what's not needed. So that's actually a really cool feature to have. But because I have so many different objects, I'm going to leave it off for now because I don't want things welding together if they're not actually supposed to be. So I'll hit apply, and it looks like it did find a few things that had to be adjusted. And everything that's adjusted is highlighted in orange. So this is a really nice tool. So right now, all these objects should be okay for export. So before we do that, what I'd like to do is what I was doing in class, where I'm assigning dummy materials to my object. So if I go ahead and show you some stuff about this, let's take a look at the UVs real quick. I have not done a very thorough job with the UVs. Let's see. So I have this weird problem. Last time I was using the UV texture editor, I was using it in my second window, but because I'm recording, I'm only using one monitor. So if you ever run into that problem where you try to open a window and it just won't open because it's stuck somewhere else, you click on the menu to open it, and then you hold down the Windows key and hit the left arrow, and it'll pop it right over to the side. So it looks like I actually didn't apply to my glass, so I'm going to go to automatic mapping and just do a quick mapping. I'm not really concerned about applying advanced textures to these. What I'm going to do is build materials to handle the shading for me. So all these are laid out. Everything has their own unique UVs. But there is a problem. So if we have all of these together, you'll see that there's things outside not necessarily organized as well as we want. So before I continue, I want to make sure that I have all my UVs in the 0 to 1 space, which is this one right here. So I'm just going to move these in. I'm not 100% concerned because honestly, I imagine you guys are going to be spending a lot more time with your assets, and I don't want to waste your time, doing stuff that I know you guys probably already know how to do. So each one of these UVs, or each one of these objects, has its own set of UVs, and they take up basically the entire UV section. So if I was to combine all these assets together and not create a new UV set, I'd run into a lot of problems. Because if I was going to bake lights, what would happen is the lights would bake shadows onto everything. It would just be a huge mess, trust me. So I'm mapping on this as well. All right. So what I'm going to do is actually combine all these objects into one, or all these objects into one. So actually, you know what? Before I do that, let's assign those materials that I was talking about. That'll actually make it a little bit easier if it's all separated. So the first thing I want to do is find out, well, you know what? Let's isolate this. So what I want to think about is how this is constructed. And if we take a look at my reference material over here, there's quite a few different material types. We have wood, faux wood, we have this metallic grate over here, there's chrome all down the side, we have a mesh grill down here, there's more vinyl wood, and translucent stuff like buttons, the glass, this plastic. There's a lot of materials going on in here. This would be a really, if I was going to do this 100%, it would take me a long time. And I plan to do it, but just not in this video because I don't want to waste your guys' time. So the idea is just, how am I going to separate this in a way that makes sense? Well, I happen to know that all these side faces are a different type of material. So I'm going to select all these, and these as well. At one point these were all detached, so it was just as easy as double clicking, but now they're all attached, unfortunately. And this side as well. Alright. That should be, oh, we'll do the bottom as well. Alright, so that should be it. Now what I want to do is find a material or build one that I can assign to this. So I actually have already built a couple. I'm going to build a new one, and I'm going to call this, I will call this side panel. And I lost all my selections. That's annoying. It's in there somewhere. Alright, got it back. That was a little annoying, sorry about that. So I'm just going to play one of these so I don't have to lose my selection. And then I'm going to call this panel. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is apply chrome to pretty much whatever is left here, aside from this inside. I want to assign this panel to that as well. But for everything else, I think I'm just going to leave as chrome. So what I'll want to do is I will use this blend 4 as chrome, so I will name this chrome. And I have to make sure to get this face. And what I'm going to do is select everything that's panel by going select objects with material, and then I'm just going to shift select everything else. So that just inverts my selection. And that's really nice because I know everything else is not what I want, and I can just assign the chrome to that right away. Alright, so that was pretty quick. Obviously, if once again, we've seen my reference, and when I do this properly, there's going to be a lot of extra texturing. But for now, what we're going to do is just apply general materials. So one that's going to handle chrome, one that's going to handle fake wood, and one that's going to handle plastic. I think we'll keep it with 3 for now. Oh, actually, we'll do one extra one, which will be glass. Alright. So we've got this piece done. That's cool. So we can close that and take a look at the next piece. This is all glass. I actually have a blend for that, so I can assign that. And now what I want to start to do is hide everything that I've already finished. So I'm going to create a new empty layer over here in my channels box, and I'm going to add all the objects I've already assigned materials to. And then I'm going to make it invisible, so I don't have to worry about it. Alright, so these pieces down here I think would be good with chrome, so I'm going to assign that. I'm going to add that. We have some plastic up here and plastic down here. I think that would be handled well with black plastic, so I'm going to assign material to selected, and I'm going to call this, we'll call this black plastic. Cool, and I can add those. Next thing I want is my my really nice 60s teal color. So I'm going to select the pieces which are relevant to that, which is this, and oh heck, we'll go with this as well, just for now. And we'll assign those to it, and then add selected. So you can see after a number of iterations, this will be a little bit easier. So this is the record selector. This is going to be good for black plastic once again, so I can assign material to that. So what you can see is I'm basically generalizing what kind of surface this is going to have, and you know, right away it'll save us a lot of time. And if you want to, you can decide later on if you want to create new materials to handle some things that we're already sharing, and you're like, oh well, this has a black plastic, but it should be more of like a black plastic with like grunge in it. So you can make changes there. You just come back into Maya and apply another fake material to it. Alright, so let's handle all of these pieces here. I think this is actually misplaced. Huh, it is. I'm going to move that back to where it should be. And I'm going to go to modify freeze transformation, so I know that it's always going to be there. Alright. Sorry about that. Now we're going to select all these objects. And we'll go with this one as well. And we're going to apply a new material. We'll do blend 7. And we're going to make this, I don't know, yellow to make it stand out. Gross. But still useful. And we'll call this metal. It's so metal. Alright, and this record, it'll kind of be like black plastic, so I'm going to assign that to that. Make sure I add all these to my invisible channels so I don't have to see them anymore. Oh, and this is actually going to have a couple different materials to it. So what I want to do is first make a selection on this mesh, which will be black plastic. So I've selected individual faces on this object, and now I can go to black plastic and assign material to selected. Cool, that's exactly what I wanted. And then I want to go and do something like select objects, face. It's not going to let me do it this time. That's alright. What I'll do is I'll select these again. What I want to try and do is apply a separate material to the inverse of this. Of course, it's giving me a hard time. Alright. Alright. And now I can shift select, and that's the inverse. And now what I want to do is we'll add this plastic. That looks really good. And then the final thing that I want is this record spindle in the middle to be metal. So I will select all of this and deselect all that. And then I can come under the metal and apply that. So sorry if I'm going a little bit fast. The idea is that you're going to use this technique on your own objects. So the general idea is that you're basically assigning materials that are vastly different from each other to objects on your prop. So my prop won't be anything like your prop, I imagine. So it'll be up to you how many different materials do you have, how many do you think is really necessary, and then you can go from there. So this is a finished piece now. I can go to add that. This is like a bottom platform. It's supposed to be just dark and out of the way, so I'm going to add that to the black. And this one's another one that has to have multiple pieces for multiple things. So all these faces, perfect. All these faces are wood texture. They was that faux wood, really gross stuff. But I think what we have to do is, there we go. I already had one for it. There we go. And I'm going to select the objects in reverse. For whatever reason, this time it worked. So now I have the inverse selected, which is this kind of border around it, and this is going to be a metal, so I can assign metal to that. I can finally go to this option, or this object, and add selected, and now it's all done. So obviously, if you have many more different types of surface types, it'll take you a little bit longer to decide which is which. But the general idea is that this should be really quick and dirty. These fake materials shouldn't have any real information on them. They're just, I color code these so that I can see the difference when I'm working with them here. But they basically just have to occupy the space on the model. Because once we export this, we'll be able to see that in Unreal 4. Alright, so we have our textures applied already. And the next thing what I want to do is actually combine all these. But before I do that, I want to duplicate them. So I just selected everything and hit Control D to duplicate. And then I want to go into Mesh and I want to combine those. And then what I'll do is remove selected. And now you can see that those single objects which are in this layer are still there. And now I have a duplicate, which is basically just one object. And the reason I did this is so that I can go into my UV texture editor and create a new set of UVs. So let's go under polygons, and then it's under create empty UV set is what we'll use. So let me full screen this, and then we can go to UV set, and this is the second UV set. And what I'm going to basically do is just do a create UVs automatic unwrap, and you can see that now all this stuff has its own space. You should really take your time and make sure that you optimize this better than what I've just done. Once again, I'm just doing this quickly so you don't have to sit here all day. But the idea is that these objects should take up as much space as possible, so I would be moving a lot of this stuff into these gaps down here and better optimizing this empty space down here. But this will work for us for now. So now I have my object. It has dummy materials applied. We've optimized it, and we've made sure that it's one single piece. So I can just go ahead and go to File, Export Selection, and I want to make sure that I have FBX selected. If you don't have FBX available in this drop-down list, we might have to turn it on. And the way we do that is by going into Modify, Window, Settings and Preferences, Settings, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Window, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and then at the very bottom there is the FBX Maya. This has to be checked on. So now that it is, we can just go into Edit, File, Export Selection, and I'm going to do this to the desktop, and I will call this Juke 1 just to make sure. And once again, we're going to take a look at the options that we need to make this better optimized for games. So the general options, reference options, include options, file type specific options. The only things that we're really going to be changing are the file type specific stuff. So I'm going to click on that. And the first thing we want to make sure is that we're in include. We're going to open that up. And under geometry, we're going to make sure that smoothing groups is on, tangent and binormals is on. Actually not smooth mesh. We'll leave that off. And then reference assets content, that's fine. Animation I don't need, so I can leave that off. And the rest of this is all fine. Cameras off, lights off, embedded media off, and connections off. The very last thing we have to do is make sure that our units are set to the right preferences. And what this is basically saying that our exported mesh is going to be in the scale of centimeters, which is what Unreal 4 is looking for. If you export this with anything else, it won't come in right. So you have to make sure that it's set to centimeters. And then the last thing you want to set is the up axis to Z. Maya typical is Y, but Unreal likes Z, so we're going to go with that. Everything else looks good. I'll export selection. So I have just a really simple scene right now. We're actually going to be using a simple scene like this later to do some camera animation stuff in. But what I want to do is just grab my mesh and drag and drop it in here. So I'm going to go to my Explorer, and I want to go to Desktop and find my asset. And it is right here, Juke 1. So all I have to do is drag and drop it. There we go. And it's going to ask me some stuff about what I want to include with this file. Auto-generate collision, that's fine by default. Because we're not too worried about playing our games as much, this will be absolutely fine. This doesn't have animation data, and it's not a skeletal mesh, so that can be checked off. LOD group, all this stuff is fine. Remove degenerates is good. Generate light map UVs we don't need. One convex hole per UC, or UCX rather, that's fine. Import normal is good. Combine meshes doesn't really need to be checked on, but I leave it on anyways. Import materials we don't need. Import textures we don't need. And everything else is okay. So I'll go ahead and import. And that'll take just a moment because it is a little bit higher poly. It has to bake that down a little bit. And here I go. It's in Unreal 4 and it looks pretty good. And what we can see on the right here is that we have all these elements, and these are the materials, our dummy material spaces that we applied in Maya. So the next thing to do is to start applying our materials. So one thing we can do is just grab kind of the stock materials, at least borrow as much as we possibly can. So I'm going to do that with the starter content materials. I'm going to go under starter content materials and find a couple of things that work for me. I think metal chrome will work fine, but how do I find which one is my chrome? Well, the easiest way to do this is by hitting the highlight button. And you can see right there it's turned things to orange. That's around here somewhere. Okay, so that one is our chrome, element 4. So all I have to do is click, drag, and drop. And now I have chrome on this piece. It's just as simple as that. So let's start again. Let's see if we can find the glass so we can make that invisible. Awesome, element 6. There is a glass over here, so I'm going to drag and drop that. And now I can actually see inside. Oh, this one's our wood paneling, so maybe we can find some pine wood. Ah, yes, that looks very nice and gross. So let's see what's next. We got another different type of wood, so I will grab, maybe this oak would be nice. Apply that. It appears that my UVs on this portion are not actually correct, but that's okay, we can take care of that later. The next component is the metal, so I'm going to look in here and find brush metal. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. Just clicking and dragging. Cool. And then I need to, actually, they don't really have a black plastic for me, so I'll have to create that by myself. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to right click in the empty space down here in my materials, and I'm going to create a new material. So click on that real quick, and I'll name this black plastic. Perfect. So I'm going to double click on this to open it up. And you'll see that we have our blank slate, and that's excellent. So right now, just by looking at this, it already kind of looks like black plastic on its own, but we can do a little better than that. So what I'm going to do is assign a couple of things. I want to assign something for base color, I want to do something for metallic, I want to do maybe something with roughness, and that's about all I really need to play with right now. Excuse me. So I'm going to go through these nodes one at a time, but I'm going to also link you guys to another video where I create more materials a little bit slower if you want to get more into materials. So this video will be a little bit shorter. So if I hold down the 3 key and then I click in this empty space, what that's going to do is create what's called a vector. And this is a vector because it has 3 different floats, which are just numbers. And what that's useful for is creating colors. So if I double click on this real quick, I am presented with this color wheel. And that's really nice. Black plastic is black, so I really don't have to add too much color to this. I'll get it right in the middle where there's not much of a hue. And I actually want to pull the black up some, because in a PBR perfect world, nothing's pitch black. There's nothing that's like, that you're going to see day to day that's absolutely black. And there's nothing that's absolutely white, and there's nothing that has an absolute value of color. PBR materials have to have a little bit below all this stuff. So I want to make the black not quite 100% black, but pretty close. And then all I have to do is click and drag this straight into base color, which is what I want. So now that you can see over here, I'm being previewed what it's looking right now. The next thing I want to do is change the metallic value. I can, just like holding down 3 made a vector, if I hold down a 1 and click, this creates just a constant, which is just one number. And I can plug this straight into metallic. A 0 for metallic means it's not metallic. If this was set to a 1, this is going to generate higher metallic values. It's a little hard to see at the moment because our roughness hasn't been applied yet. So let's go ahead and put a value in for this. I'm going to hold the 1 key again and click off to the side, plug this into roughness, and what you'll see is we get a really smooth object. And now you're starting to see that this looks a little bit more like plastic. So let's change this metallic value. I'm going to change it from the 1 that it is right now back down to 0. And it might be really subtle, it's a little hard to see, but there was a little bit of a difference on the color value. So you see right now there's overall gray value to this. But when I set it back to a metallic value of 1, the black is jet black. It is very, very dark black. So I think I want to go with something kind of in the middle. Kind of looks like plastic. And I want to turn the roughness down. A 0 is super, super smooth, like mirror smooth, so I don't need that. I'm going to go down to a 0.3. And you can see that you can actually make out some of the clouds, and you can still see the sun in this, but it's not like a mirror. It's still got cool reflections going on, but it's not crazy smooth. Something we can also do is go into the textures over here in our content browser and take a look at some of the stuff that they have and see if we can maybe borrow some of it. So there's a T macro variation. I'm going to click on that real quick. And this is, I'm not exactly sure what this is in real life. It's probably a composite image of a bunch of different stuff, probably like metals and rock and stuff. But I think this would look kind of cool for the roughness. So I'm going to show you guys one trick real quick on how to adjust this kind of stuff. So what I want to do is grab this and drag and drop it. And I'm going to full screen this real quick. And I'm just going to drag this straight into roughness real quick. And you can see it's actually, it doesn't look that bad. It looks kind of cool. But there is a little too much contrast for me right now. I don't really like how some of it is really, really shiny and some of it's really, really dull. So one way we can decide about, well, actually, let me mention this. So a roughness value of 1, which is pure white, is super rough. A roughness value of 0, which is black, is really smooth. So you can tell in our image that there's quite a bit of difference between this white area and this darker area, which is why it looks like it does over here. But we can actually dictate what's coming out of this. So I'm going to do that right now. What I'm going to do is hold down the L key, and this is called a lerp. Lerp is short for linear interpolation. And basically what it means is that it's going to read an alpha, and its alpha is going to be, I'm going to choose the red channel. If we take a look at here, and we disable the green and the blue, the red is just black and white, and that's what we need for this alpha. And basically what it is right now it's set up so the constant A, which is this one right here, is set to 0. The constant B is set to 1. So basically it's saying everything in this image is going to be scaled from 0 to 1. But if I want less contrast, I can actually shorten the distance between the 0 and 1. So I can change this to like a 0.2 and a maximum of 0.4. And then I'm going to plug this straight into my roughness. And now you can see that this is much, much more subtle. And that's what's selling a lot of PBR materials, is subtlety. So once again, we're taking a black and white channel out of this texture, and it's driving with its values of dark and white these values. So the whitest of the white in this image can only be a 0.4, and the darkest of the dark can only be a 0.2, and everything else in the middle is kind of averaged out. And that leaves us with this. So this is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and apply it. There's nothing else I want to do with that. I can close out of it. I'm going to go back into my props. Oh, no, that's... where did I leave that? Oh, that's right. It's in meshes. Sorry about that. And I'll open up the jukebox again. And let's see if we can find what we wanted for black plastic. Ah, yes. That would be this one. So I'll go back under materials real quick, and I'm going to drag and drop black plastic straight onto that. And it looks pretty good. The very last one we want to do is this teal plastic. So what I want to do is show you guys something real quick about a material instance. And what a material instance is basically a copy of a material with a couple of things changed around. So to do that first, we have to set up our original copy. So I'm going to double click on this black plastic. And what I want to do is just change the color of this plastic from black to that teal. So what I can do is right click on this color and I can convert to parameter. And I'm going to call this plastic color. So now what this means is I can use this in real time in my game to change color. And what I think I also want, I'll delete this because it's not doing any good. I also want one for the metallic. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to convert this to a parameter as well, and I'll call this met, or plastic met. Just so if I want to, I can change that later. And the roughness I think is going to be a-okay. So now I can just hit apply to this, and you'll notice that nothing's really changed at all. And that's perfect, that's what we want. So the next thing I want to do is create a copy of this with a separate color. And the way I do that is just by right clicking on it, and then there is this create material instance property. So I'll click on that real quick, and now if I double click this, you'll see that this doesn't look like the last material at all. It does look like it's rendering the same, but we don't have like the same, it's not like this. It's missing all of this. Well, what it's only showing us is this option and this option, the ones that we promoted to variables. And that will be under scalar parameter and vector parameter. So I can just click on this little checkbox and you can see that my black value is right there. And now I can go to whatever I want, my teal. And you can see just how easy that is. And the really nice thing about this is it's in real time. And this is huge. This is something that was never possible before Unreal 4 came out. So I'm going to pick the hue that I like. And I think the metallic value is a little bit too strong. So I'm going to grab this plastic metallic value and I'm going to dial it down. I think I'll dial it down even more. There we go. I think that looks pretty dang good. So I'm going to save this. And now I can go into my jukebox and I can grab this instance and drag and drop it. And there we go. So this is just very, very quick and dirty. Like I showed you, I created a new material for this black plastic. This is probably one of the most simple materials I've ever made. And the ones that I normally work on are much, much more complex. But that being said, it doesn't take a lot of work to make something look good. You just need a little bit of practice, a little bit of know-how, and you'll be able to create stuff pretty quickly. Alright, so that's been a really quick overview on how to start making a game, right? So we talked about how to optimize a mesh really quickly with the cleanup tool, and then we made sure that we applied dummy materials to our object so we could apply these materials later on, and then we exported with the optimum settings, imported with the optimum settings, and then we applied some really cool materials, and we even got to create one. So what I want you guys to do is to have an object which you're proud of. It can be something from the past, or it could be something that you want to create right now. But what I'm looking for is for it to have two things. The first thing is animation capable objects. So like there are parts of this jukebox that could definitely be animated. They're not yet, but they definitely could be. So your object is going to have to be animatable. Animatable? Yeah. Because we're going to do that later on. And I also want you to have an object which has the ability to be, well, basically have a bunch of different surface variations. So this one's got wood, it's got plastic, it's got metal, it's got glass. I would like to see at least 3 different unique material types on your objects. And that way it's a little better to have a variety. It's a little bit more impressive. So there's no real limit on poly count. The piece that I have right here is going to be a menu piece. So basically, the player is going to walk up to it and select the music, and that's going to act as like a timer for the game. So I decided to make it high poly, and as you can see, it renders real well. It's nice and fast. So we typically don't have to worry too much about poly count anymore. But that being said, if you're importing an object that has 10 million polys, you're gonna have a bad time. So keep it reasonable. This one's got nearly 40,000 vertices, 21,000 triangles. I would recommend single objects having less than 100,000, and you won't have any problems. Alright, so that's going to be it. If you'd like to watch another video about more about the kind of stuff that we were talking about, more about materials and that type of stuff on my YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this, I have a couple more material videos. I have this one right here, materials. This goes over how to create a wood material, which is really easy to do. And if you want to create a nice wood, fine wood texture, I would recommend watching this video as well. Alright guys, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you next week.